The Temple Beneath the Rain Part 2. Chapter 12, The Temple of the First Spiral. It took them a full day to reach the mountain. By then, the air had changed. The jungle was too quiet. Even the rain had stopped, as though the sky itself was holding its breath. Each step closer to the temple felt heavier, like the ground knew what waited ahead. Anikar stopped at the base of the stone stairs. "Tell me again why we're going up toward the creepy mountain temple that wants to eat our souls." "Because this is where the spiral began," Soriya said. "Where it was carved into the world. You're really not selling it. It doesn't want to be sold. It wants to be remembered. The temple wasn't just carved into the mountain. It was the mountain." Hundreds of stone faces stared down from the cliffs, some smiling, others weeping. A few had mouths stitched shut with vines. The steps between them formed a spiraling ascent toward a central archway, crowned by a stone disc shaped like the rain stone, only cracked down the middle. Each step pulsed with faint red light as they climbed. "How do you know the way?" Anikar asked. "I don't," Soriya said. "But my body does." And indeed, her movements were precise, like she had walked these stairs before. Anikar followed, one hand never far from the satchel holding the now fractured rain stone. At the top of the stairs, a circular stone courtyard opened like a mouth waiting to speak. Carved into its floor was a massive spiral, 20 feet wide, filled with glyphs that shimmered with dormant magic. At the center stood a stone pillar shaped like a blade, its edge blackened with something that might once have been blood. "This is a memory seal," Soriya whispered. "If we step inside, we remember." "That's good, right?" "No. It's dangerous. Because we don't get to choose which memories come back." She stepped into the circle. The moment her foot crossed the first glyph, the air changed. The light in the carvings flared to life. Anikar followed. The stone pillar at the center cracked open. Inside, a voice rose, not loud, not deep, but final. "You come again, bearers of the spiral. You broke the vow once. You come to break it again." Soriya clutched her stomach. She fell to her knees. "No, no, not yet." Anikar reached for her, but the spiral on his arm burned red-hot, and he was thrown backward. He landed hard, flat on his back, and remembered. The palace hall. Gold walls. Crowded court. He stood in royal garb, the rain stone embedded in the crown atop his head. Soriya knelt at his feet, bound and bleeding. He heard his voice, not now, but then. "She is the curse made flesh. She must be sealed." And then, his own hand lowering the crown. The spiral on it burning red as it touched her forehead. She screamed once. Then was gone. Anikar woke on the floor of the spiral court, gasping. Soriya stared at him. Tears in her eyes. "You were the one who sealed me," she said. He nodded. Shaking. "I didn't remember." "You do now." The stone pillar cracked further. Words burned into the air above it. The temple whispered. "One must die. One must forget. The spiral ends when love breaks its promise." Soriya read the words aloud. Then turned to Anikar. "It's not about stopping the curse," she said. "It's about whether we can survive each other." He reached for her hand. "Then let's change the story this time." But above them, the carved faces on the cliffs began to weep blood. And the spiral glowed hotter. It wasn't over. It was just beginning again. Chapter 13, Fires in the Monsoon Garden. The jungle bloomed with silence. The kind of silence that meant something old was listening. Anikar and Soriya moved quickly, their bodies sore from the spiral's awakening, but neither spoke as they left the mountain behind. They followed an old trade path choked with vines, one that hadn't been walked in generations. By dusk, the rains returned. Heavy. Relentless. But ahead, tucked between two ridges and half swallowed by roots, rose the broken spires of an ancient garden temple, cracked columns still bearing glyphs long outlawed by the empire. Soriya stopped at the threshold. "I know this place," she whispered. "You remember it?" Anikar asked. "I think I lived here, before I was sealed." They stepped inside. The garden had long overgrown, but the stone paths remained, slick with moss. Pools of water glowed faintly with rainlight. Fireflies hovered between fallen statues. An overgrown altar stood at the center, vines creeping up its sides like ivy over memory. Soriya found a dry alcove beneath a broken archway. Anikar cleared away leaves, started a small fire, and shrugged out of his soaked tunic. She turned away, just slightly. He noticed. Smiled. "You're not used to me like this," he said. "I'm not used to you at all," she replied softly. Soriya knelt beside the fire and unwrapped a bundle of herbs from her satchel. "You've got bruised ribs," she said. "Lie down. You sure this isn't an excuse to stab me? If I stab you, you'll feel it. This just burns." He lay back as she crushed the leaves between her fingers and rubbed the mixture into his skin. It stung. But her hands were steady, and her touch was careful. "You were royalty, weren't you?" she asked. "Once. Maybe. I don't remember the crown, just the guilt." "I wasn't supposed to fall in love with the vessel," she whispered. "And I wasn't supposed to be the vessel," he said. They looked at each other. The fire cracked. She leaned in without warning. And kissed him. Not out of passion. But out of something else. Recognition. A desire to touch something real, if only for a moment. When they broke apart, neither of them moved. "That was familiar," he said. "Because we've done it before," she murmured. "And how did it end?" "With one of us bleeding." The fire hissed. The wind shifted. And from the far end of the garden, a voice called. "I was wondering when you'd find your way back." They both turned sharply. A figure stood at the edge of the overgrowth, hooded, lean, wrapped in oilskin armor. She stepped forward and pulled back her hood. "Chanra. You two always did like to hide in ruins," she said. "Romantic. Stupid. Predictable." Soriya reached for her blade. "You followed us." "Of course I did. The rain stone's energy is all over you. You glow like fire to the ones trained to see." Anikar stood slowly, between them. "What do you want?" Chanra shrugged. "A warning. And maybe, a favor." "The spiral is fully awake now," she said. "The Emperor's priests are preparing the final seal, one that'll wipe your names from history completely. And you're here to help us stop it?" "No," she said simply. "I'm here to offer you a way out." "Again?" Anikar scoffed. "This time it's different," Chanra said, eyes fixed on Soriya. "Because the curse isn't what we thought. It's not just memory. It's rewrite. It's already changing things." "What do you mean?" "I remember things that never happened. I dream about holding a child I've never had. A city that burned before it was ever built." She looked shaken. "And I remember her," she added, nodding to Soriya. "Not from the temple. From somewhere else. Somewhere that's not real, but feels real." Soriya's voice was barely a whisper. "The spiral is reaching backward." Chanra stepped closer. "There's a chamber below the Emperor's shrine. The Codex of the Unnamed. It's the only place the spiral can be rewritten completely. If you get there before the council does, maybe you win. Maybe you change everything." "And what do you get?" Anikar asked. She looked away. Maybe I just want to stop waking up with someone else's tears in my throat. A moment passed. Then she said, "You've got 3 days. After that, the final ritual begins. And you'll both vanish like none of this ever happened." She turned. "Don't waste the time I just bought you." And then she was gone. Soriya stared into the fire. "Do you trust her?" "No," Anikar said. "But she's right," Soriya added. "We don't have much time." They sat in silence again, firelight flickering between them. Anikar reached across the space and gently took her hand. "Then let's finish the story," he said. "And this time, let's not bleed alone." Chapter 14, The City That Forgets Itself. They reached the edge of the empire by dawn. But something was wrong. The towers of Torrenket, the capital's outer ward, rose ahead, but the banners were blank. No crest. No sigil. No name. And worse. No gate guards. No patrols. Just stillness. Like the city had been paused mid-sentence. They slipped through a breach in the outer wall and entered a market square once vibrant with life. Now it was empty. Not ruined. Just abandoned. Stalls stood with fruit that hadn't spoiled. Papers lay untouched in puddles. A clay doll sat in the middle of the road like a child had set it down and forgotten why. "Where is everyone?" Anikar whispered. "They're here," Soriya said. "But the spiral has begun to unname them." They turned a corner. And saw the first one. A man stood in the street, eyes open, face calm. But there was nothing behind his gaze. His clothes were clean. His hands were still. His lips parted slightly. Anikar stepped closer. "Sir. Are you all right?" No response. He touched the man's shoulder. The man vanished. No sound. No burst of magic. Just gone. The clay cup he held fell and shattered. As they walked deeper into the ward, they saw more of them. A woman frozen mid-laugh, mouth open, eyes blank. A child drawing spirals in chalk on the street, over and over. A priest muttering words in a language no one had spoken in centuries, then dissolving into red dust. Soriya's grip on the rain stone tightened. "This is happening faster than I thought." "It's not just forgetting," Anikar said. "It's rewriting." He pointed at a sign above a shop door. The letters were shifting. Changing from one script to another. The wood warped. The paint peeled back. The sign now read, "Welcome to Kar." Ka. Then it was blank. They crossed into the eastern district, and it was like walking through fog inside the mind. Buildings flickered between styles. One moment, the roof was imperial tile. The next, it was jungle thatch. Then stone. A man emerged from a doorway, frantic. "Have you seen my wife?" he asked. "My son, he was just here, he was just." He stopped. Looked down at his own hands. "Do I have a son?" His form rippled. Soriya reached for him. "Don't speak, stay with us." But he looked at her with tears in his eyes and whispered, "Who am I?" And vanished. In the center of the ward stood an ancient archive tower. It had once held the empire's public records. Now, its walls were covered in spirals, moving spirals, etched in red, crawling like vines across the stone. Soriya stepped closer. "It's writing us out." Anikar looked at the wall. And saw his own name appear. Then blur. Then fade. He stumbled back. "It's already reaching me." Suddenly, the wind shifted. And voices rose from every direction. Not shouting. Not speech. Just one word. Over and over. Forget. It echoed from alleys. From rooftops. From beneath their feet. Soriya clutched his hand. This district is gone, she said. The spiral's taking whole sectors now. We have to go. Before it takes us to. Where? Anikar asked. The palace. We'll never make it through the inner wall. We don't need the front door, she said. We go beneath. As they fled the district, Anikar turned back one last time. A statue in the center of the square, the empire's founder, was shifting. The face melted. The sword it held turned to a scroll. Then to nothing. And across its pedestal, a spiral carved itself like a wound in stone. Chapter 15, Beneath the Throne. The sun had vanished behind storm clouds by the time they reached the outer wall of the palace grounds. Lightning forked across the sky as Soriya and Anikar knelt beneath a cracked statue of a lion-headed guardian. Its face had eroded over centuries, the eyes worn smooth by wind and whispered prayers long forgotten. Is this it? Anikar asked. The entrance was sealed a century ago, Soriya said, running her hand along the stone base. But the spiral still remembers how to open it. She touched a spiral glyph carved just beneath the lion's paws. It flared red. The ground beneath them shuddered. Stone scraped against stone as a hidden staircase groaned open beneath the statue's base, spiraling downward into darkness. Why does everything we need always involve creepy stairs? Anikar muttered. Because truth is always buried beneath the throne, Soriya replied. They descended. The air below was cold and dry. Dust hung in the air like breath that had nowhere to go. They passed murals carved into the stone, not with hammers, but etched by magic. Moving images flickered across the walls as they walked. A figure cloaked in red holding the rain stone aloft. A city built from names, unraveling as each name vanished. Two figures embracing inside a spiral, then consumed by it. Anikar slowed. That's us, he said, pointing at the last image. No, Soriya said. That's every version of us. They reached a vast circular door at the end of the passage. It was sealed with 9 interlocking spirals, each engraved with a language lost to time. The final spiral glowed faintly at their approach, its glyph shifting, trying to match the pulse of Soriya's heartbeat. This is the Codex Chamber, she whispered. The place where the spiral was written for the first time. Written by who? By the one who wanted to end time. Anikar looked at her. Seriously? Not time as a whole, she clarified. Just the parts of it that hurt. She pressed her palm to the center spiral. It opened. The chamber beyond was enormous. Its walls were lined with shelves of stone, each shelf holding scrolls carved into bone, each bone etched with a name. The room shimmered with low red light, like fire seen through blood. At the center stood a dais. And atop it, the original spiral. Not a carving. Not a symbol. A living thing. It hovered midair, thin lines of light twisting, pulsing, changing as they watched. It spoke. Not in sound, but in memory. Anikar's body stiffened. His mind filled with flashes. A child watching his mother forget his name. A battlefield where no one remembered why they fought. Soriya, chained to the altar, whispering his name even as her own was erased. Make it stop, he gasped. You have to fight it, Soriya said, gripping his hand. Don't let it take your name. Soriya led him to the far wall, where a black tablet pulsed. Each time the spiral shifted, the tablet displayed a different name. Then that name was erased. What is this place? Anikar asked. This is where they store the erased, Soriya said. The ones no longer spoken of. The lives the Empire erased to keep its power. And we're on there. She hesitated. Then nodded. Our names appear every time the curse restarts. And every time we fail, they vanish again. The spiral flared. A line of glowing red text appeared across the chamber ceiling. Words in a language neither of them should know, but both could suddenly read. If you would unwrite the curse, one must remain forgotten. And the other must speak their name until the world ends. Anikar stared at it. It wants us to choose again. It always does, Soriya whispered. They looked at each other. The spiral pulsed. Waiting. Chapter 16, The Thief Who Was a King. The spiral pulsed brighter. Its glow washed over Anikar like a fever dream, turning the air thick and electric. He staggered, clutching the edges of the stone dais. For a moment, the chamber blurred around him, walls dripping like wet ink, the bones in the shelves humming with names that weren't his. And then he remembered. Not in pieces. Not in flashes. In full detail. He stood in the same chamber, but centuries earlier. No moss. No ruin. Everything was polished obsidian and flickering torchlight. He wore imperial robes, black with gold trim, the rain stone set into a pendant at his chest. A crown rested in his palm, light from the spiral reflecting in its metal. And before him knelt Soriya. Bound in ceremonial silk, her wrists bloodied from the fight it took to bring her here. But she wasn't afraid. She was looking at him like she still loved him. You can stop this, she said. You don't have to give me to the spiral. They'll destroy us both if I don't, his past self whispered. Then let it all burn. I can't. He stepped forward. Lifted the crown. And placed it against her brow. As the metal touched her skin, the spiral behind them burst with light. Soriya screamed once. Then collapsed. The chamber fell silent. The crown rolled from her hands and cracked in half. And the man, Anikar, though he no longer deserved the name, turned away from her. He walked back toward the court above, the spiral's light burning into his spine. Anikar gasped and fell to his knees. Soriya rushed to him, grabbing his shoulders. What did you see? He looked up, eyes wild. I was a king. I know. I gave you to the spiral. I remember. You loved me. I still do, she said, voice barely audible. He clenched his jaw. Then why don't you kill me? Because this time, you regret it. They sat in silence for a moment, the spiral above them slowly dimming, waiting. Then Anikar spoke. This whole curse, it wasn't meant to erase everyone, was it? Soriya nodded. No. It was meant to erase me. He stared. After you sealed me, she said, they thought the spiral would be satisfied. But love is memory. It's defiance. It endures. And because I couldn't forget you. The spiral turned on them. Anikar walked to the nearest bone shelf and ran his fingers over the engraved names. They were fading. Not from age, but from neglect. This is where they put the ones who defied the Empire's story, he said. He found one name, glowing faintly, Anikar. That was me. He looked at Soriya. We have to finish this. No more erasing. No more rewrites. Then we go to the Codex Vault, she said. We rewrite it ourselves. But that means. Yes, she said. We either survive together, or we become legend. Before they left, Anikar turned to the spiral one last time. He stepped close. You tried to make me forget her, he said softly. You failed. The spiral pulsed once. Then flickered. As if, just for a moment, it remembered too. Chapter 17, The Map Written in Flame. The chamber doors closed behind them with a thunderous echo, sealing the spiral and its whispers inside. But its weight followed them. Every step back through the catacombs felt heavier, like the bones overhead were pressing in, not out of anger, but expectation. The spiral had revealed its terms. Now it wanted them to act. As they emerged from the stairwell beneath the broken statue, the storm above had intensified. Rain came down in violent sheets, slicing through the trees and flooding the broken roads of the capital's outskirts. Soriya pulled her hood low and led them toward the old citadel wall. "If we're going to rewrite the spiral," she said, "we need to find the Codex vault." "And where is it?" Anikar asked. "Buried in the flame-etched script of a traitor's skin." Anikar blinked. "That's very specific. It was once a myth. The Empire's most dangerous librarian, archivist Nail, was executed for trying to unlock the spiral's secrets. I thought he was cremated." "They tried," she said grimly. "But the spiral kept his body from burning. His flesh holds the vault's location, carved in flame, sealed in blood." "So, where's the body?" "In the crypt of the Black Garden. Hidden beneath the ruins of a collapsed monastery, the Black Garden was once a sanctuary for those who preserved forbidden knowledge. Now it was nothing but scorched stone, wild roots, and broken statues half consumed by moss. They entered through a collapsed arch. Twisting vines had reclaimed the courtyard, and strange red blossoms pulsed faintly with spiral energy. As they passed, the flowers whispered names, not aloud, but directly into the mind. "Do not listen to them," Soriya warned. "They only speak of what you've already lost." Anikar caught one word, just one, slip into his mind. "Daughter." He stopped short. But before he could speak, the wind changed. In the center of the ruined sanctuary stood a stone sarcophagus, chained shut with sigil-stamped iron. It was warm. Too warm. Soriya drew her blade. "If the seal's broken, we run. What if he's awake? Then we pray he remembers who we are." Anikar reached for the chain, and it uncoiled on its own, slithering across the stone and falling limp at his feet. The lid slid open. Inside lay a man, skin gray and cracked like cooled magma, but covered in flame-etched spirals that still pulsed with dull red light. His chest rose slowly, like he breathed once every few minutes. "That's him," Soriya whispered. "Nail." Anikar approached carefully. He could see it now, the pattern across Nail's torso wasn't decorative. It was a map. A spiral-coded set of coordinates wrapped in forgotten glyphs. Anikar reached into his satchel and pulled out the fractured rain stone. The glow from it pulled the spirals on Nail's chest to life. Suddenly, Nail's eyes opened. "Red." "Kanakar," the dead man rasped. Anikar staggered. "You know me. I remember all who tried to break the spiral. You failed once. Will you fail again?" "Not this time," Anikar said. "Then take what you came for. But know this." Nail sat up slowly. "The vault does not ask for entry. It asks for sacrifice. One name must be burned. Forever." Nail's body began to collapse, dust curling from his lips, his limbs breaking into ash. But the spirals lifted, glowing symbols rising into the air like fireflies, then burning themselves into a blank scroll that floated in Anikar's hands. "The map written in flame." "That's our way in," Soriya said. "To the vault. To the end of the spiral." Anikar stared at the map. His name flickered at the edge of it. "What happens when we get there?" "We write a new ending," she said. "And finally remember how to live." Chapter 18, Chanra's Regret. The rain had finally stopped. But the silence it left behind was worse. Anikar and Soriya moved quickly through the lower groves of the Empire's forgotten quarter, the map written in flame still glowing faintly through the leather satchel. With the vault's location burned into memory, they had one goal left. Reach it before the spiral rewrote them for good. They didn't expect to find her waiting in the ruins of a broken fountain. But there she was. Chanra. She didn't draw her weapons. She didn't smile. She sat on the cracked edge of the fountain, arms crossed, cloak soaked, eyes distant. Behind her, the remains of a white lotus standard lay trampled in the mud. I was wondering when you'd show up again, Anikar said cautiously. I almost didn't, she murmured. And what stopped you? Soriya asked. Chanra looked at her. And for once, there was no sarcasm. No tension. Just guilt. The spiral, she said softly. It showed me something I wasn't supposed to see. She stood slowly, walked toward them, and removed a scroll from her cloak. It was blank. No words. No seal. Just faint outlines of spirals, etched so lightly they barely touched the surface. This was my name, she said. What do you mean? Soriya asked. Before the spiral erased it. You're still here, Anikar said. You remember everything. Chanra smiled bitterly. No, Ani. I remember what it lets me remember. She pointed to the scroll. It's already started. I wake up some mornings and forget what I'm fighting for. Forget the faces of the people I hated. The ones I loved. Her eyes flicked to him. You included. When I reached the codex threshold 2 nights ago. I saw something. She looked pale now. Drained. I saw you, Soriya. But not now. Not like this. You were wearing royal robes. A golden veil. You were standing before the spiral, and you sealed yourself. Soriya froze. That's not possible. I know what I saw. You didn't just survive the spiral. You helped build it. Silence. Then, softly. I was one of the first guardians, Soriya said. You never told me that, Anikar murmured. Because I didn't remember, she said. Until now. Chanra stepped closer. You don't have long. The council has begun the ritual of severing. If they complete it, the codex vault seals forever. Every version of us, every memory we've ever had, will vanish. How long do we have? Anikar asked. Until the next moonrise, Chanra said. Maybe less. She held out a small vial, black glass, sealed with red wax. A key, she said. To the final chamber of the codex vault. You'll need it to open the altar. Soriya took it. Why are you helping us now? She asked. Chanra exhaled slowly. Because the spiral took something from me. Something I didn't know I wanted until it was gone. She turned away. Go. Finish the story. Or we all become ghosts that never lived. As she passed Anikar, she paused. Do you remember the monsoon festival? She asked. He blinked. You bought me a mango drink. Told me I looked ridiculous in a flower crown. She smiled faintly. Good. That means it's still real, for now. Then she walked into the trees. And didn't look back. Chapter 19, The City That Devours Its Own. They entered the capital at twilight. Or, what should have been twilight. Because the sky above no longer held time. It shifted in color by the second, bleeding from deep dusk to high morning, then back to mist. Birds flew in circles and vanished mid-flight. Bells tolled from towers that didn't exist a moment before. The city wasn't dying. It was devouring itself. Anikar and Soriya moved quickly, cloaks pulled low, hoods tight. But stealth was meaningless now, there were no eyes left to see them. The streets were littered with empty shoes. Letters fell from signboards like dead leaves. A scribe sat alone in the plaza, scribbling madly into a blank book with a broken quill, muttering. If I write it down, it stays, if I write it down, it. Then he paused. Stared at the ink. It vanished before their eyes. So did he. Soriya gripped Anikar's arm. The spirals evolved. It's not just erasing, it's hunting. It's chosen minds. Targets. It knows we're close. How do you know? He asked. Because I can feel it crawling across my bones. They passed the old temple quarter, now just melted walls and drifting prayer flags that no longer held symbols. A monk stood in front of the altar, face tilted to the sky. I gave my name to the rain, he whispered. And then turned to salt. They followed the map's path toward the codex vault. But the city kept shifting. Roads curved where they used to end. Alleyways doubled back into themselves. A bridge that led to the old library gate now dropped off into an abyss where buildings had crumbled into memory voids, spaces where the spiral had completely consumed existence. In the center of the plaza, a massive bronze clock tower stood. But it didn't move forward. It ticked backward, hands spinning in reverse. Every time it struck the hour, a blast of spiral magic shook the buildings. Each toll cost the city something. A street. A year. A child's name whispered by a grieving mother who no longer remembered she had one. As they neared the vault gate, Anikar stumbled. He pressed a hand to his temple. What was that? Spiral tremor, Soriya said, helping him up. I forgot my brother's face. He looked at her, eyes wide. I don't have a brother. She held his gaze. Yes, you did. Then why can't I? Because it's starting to reach you. Finally, they reached a ruined courtyard where the old walls still bore imperial glyphs. The vault gate stood at the far side, a massive slab of obsidian marked with one spiral, burning faintly red. It pulsed with each beat of their hearts. Soriya pulled the vial Chanra gave them from her pouch and poured the black liquid into the sigil. The spiral flared. And the gate shattered open like glass breaking in slow motion. Inside, darkness waited. Not absence. Memory. Old. Heavy. And watching. As they stepped across the threshold, a voice whispered behind them. When you speak the ending, choose carefully. Only one name may leave the vault intact. They turned. No one there. But Anikar's name echoed once, faint and cracked. Anikar. Then silence. Chapter 20, The Archive Beneath the Rain. The vault door closed behind them with a soft finality, like the hush before the storm forgets your name. Anikar and Soriya stepped into a corridor that didn't seem to obey the rules of space. The walls pulsed like they were breathing. Light had no source. Shadows fell in opposite directions. This was no hallway. It was a memory artery. Carved not with tools, but with will. This isn't just an archive, Soriya whispered. It's the spiral's mind. And we're inside it. As they moved deeper, the walls began to show images. Not history. Not myth. Them. Anikar saw a vision of himself as a child, alone in a ruined village, clutching a wooden sword. He didn't remember this. But the spiral did. He saw Soriya, dressed in robes of a high priestess, giving a speech to a crowd that had long since turned to dust. She paused. That was my coronation. You were a queen. In one version. How many versions are there? She met his eyes. All of them. Until now. As they reached the heart of the vault, the hallway ended in a wide circular chamber. At its center, a floating scroll, wrapped in gold chains. Its parchment glowed faintly red, and text crawled across it like insects, letters forming and dissolving endlessly. The scroll of unmaking. It wasn't just words. It was a command. A story with the power to overwrite. This is it, Soriya said. We speak into it. We change the spiral. Rewrite what was lost. And the cost? She looked down. Only one name can survive. What if we don't choose? Then we both vanish. And the spiral continues. Suddenly, the scroll flared. And the ground beneath them shifted. A second Anikar stepped into the chamber. Younger. Darker. Dressed in gold armor, eyes glowing faint red. Not a ghost. A memory made flesh. You left her behind, the echo said. Anikar backed away. This isn't real. It's the part of you that sealed the curse, the double said. You buried me. But you needed me to survive. And now, to rewrite the spiral, you must kill me. Anikar turned to Soriya. What happens if I lose? Then he becomes the only version. The spiral pulsed. The double attacked. They clashed in the vault light, blade on blade, memory against choice. Anikar fought like a man with nothing left to lose, but the echo knew his every move. Every feint. Every fear. Soriya circled the scroll, whispering in the old tongue, trying to awaken it. It won't open, she shouted. It's waiting. For him. Anikar gritted his teeth and twisted his blade, driving it into the echo's chest. You don't speak for me anymore. The echo laughed. Then say her name. And lose your own. Anikar turned to Soriya. She stood beneath the scroll, palms open, rain falling through the ceiling that wasn't really there. The chamber had begun to dissolve. The spiral was breaking. Choose, the scroll whispered. Only one name may remain. Soriya looked at him. You deserve to live, she said. You've carried this longer than anyone. He stepped forward. And you were the only thing worth remembering. He took her hand. Then we speak both names together. And break the rule. But. We write a new ending. Together, they said. Anikar. Soriya. The scroll burned with light. The chamber cracked. The spiral on the wall tore itself in half. And the vault exploded with rain, real rain, this time. Not memory. Not magic. It soaked them. Cleansed them. And rewrote them. When the light faded, the chamber was empty. The scroll was gone. So was the spiral. But on the floor, two names remained, etched in gold. Anikar. Soriya. Nothing else. But sometimes, that's enough. Chapter 21, A World Without Spirals. It was morning. Not gray, not blood-red, not shifting. Just, morning. For the first time in what felt like lifetimes, the sky held a clear blue hue that didn't flicker or fade. Rain fell gently, no longer whispering names, no longer tasting of memory. Just rain. Anikar sat upright on soft grass in the shadow of a tree he didn't recognize. No ruins. No spiral markings. Just quiet. And birdsong. Real birdsong. He blinked slowly. His name was still his. He remembered everything. Soriya. She was a few feet away, sitting cross-legged beneath the tree, watching the sunrise. She turned when he spoke. Smiled. Not the sad, haunted smile she wore for most of their journey. A real one. You remember me, she said. Like I never stopped. Good. Then it worked. They looked around. In every direction stretched the outer edges of the city, only, not. The towers were restored. No flickering signs, no missing people, no weeping stone. The city was whole. But changed. They walked through the streets cautiously. People moved around them, laughing, bartering, shouting at market stalls. Children played in the fountains. The capital thrived. But no one recognized them. Not as criminals. Not as saviors. Not at all. Even the palace looked different. The spiral crest was gone, replaced by a new symbol, a circle split evenly down the middle. Balance. They don't remember, Anikar said. Of course not, Soriya replied. We didn't just destroy the spiral. We unwrote its history. The world rebuilt itself around the absence. So they're free. Yes. And us? She took his hand. We're whatever we choose now. In the restored archive hall, they found a wall of historical carvings, kings, queens, battles, treaties. Polished. Framed. But unwritten. This was where the spiral should have been, Anikar said. A monument to something no one remembers. Should we tell them? She looked at him. Eyes deep with memory. Would they believe it? Would they want it? He shook his head. No. They stood there a moment longer. Then walked away. Outside the city gates, Soriya drew a small spiral in the dirt. It didn't burn. It didn't whisper. It was just a mark now. A symbol. A memory. She wiped it away with her heel. What do we do now? Anikar asked. Live, she said. He smiled. That sounds terrifying. Good, she said. That means we're doing it right. They walked into the rain together. The spiral was gone. But the story, the one they chose, was just beginning. Chapter 22, A Flame That Still Remembers. 1 year later. The capital was alive in ways it hadn't been for generations. Lanterns danced above the rooftops of the trade district. A festival spilled into the main square, filled with music, laughing children, the scent of warm spices and roasted fruit. For the first time in centuries, the city celebrated no empire, no war, no gods. Just itself. And no one remembered why the last festival had been cancelled, or why it had taken so long to return. Anikar stood at the edge of a rebuilt watchtower, watching the crowd below with quiet eyes and a faint smile. His cloak was dark blue now, no longer the muddy traveler's rags, but a modest one, embroidered with a small spiral unseen to most. Not glowing. Just stitched in silver thread. A symbol only 2 people remembered. Soriya appeared beside him, barefoot, carrying 2 cups of fruit wine. Still hiding? She asked, handing him one. Just watching, he said. Trying to believe it's real. It is, she said. And it's yours. Ours, he corrected. They now lived in the old orchid quarter, restored, peaceful, overgrown with real flowers instead of twisted vines. Soriya had turned one of the abandoned shrines into a place of healing and quiet. Not a temple. Not sacred. Just a space where people remembered how to be human. No spiral. No gods. No vows. Just stories. And kindness. But far from the city, in a grove where nothing ever grew, a wind stirred that didn't belong. Beneath the earth, where the ruins of the vault had collapsed and vanished, something shifted. A crack. A breath. Not loud. Not dangerous. Just, watching. And in the dust, one fragment of the spiral, no larger than a fingernail, still glowed faintly red. Not pulsing. Not active. But present. Waiting. Back at the tower, Soriya leaned her head on Anikar's shoulder. Do you ever miss it? She asked. The spiral? The weight of knowing something no one else could. He paused. No, he said softly. Because I get to know you. And that's enough. They stood in silence for a long time, watching the sky darken into stars. The spiral was gone. But love remembered. And in that remembrance, they were free.
Every story has an ending, but some mysteries live on. If you enjoyed this tale, don't let it fade into the shadows. Smash that like button and subscribe for more thrilling stories that will transport you beyond the veil of the ordinary. Subscribe to our channel and your name will appear at the beginning of our next video, where we will pleasantly thank you for your subscribing. Tap the bell icon so you never miss a journey into the unknown. Share your thoughts in the comments. What twists did you see coming? And what secrets do you think still remain? Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and let the next story begin.